Sundar Sarukkai has held positions of Professor of Philosophy at the National Institute of Advanced Studies, that's NIAS, founder director of the Manipal Center for Philosophy and Humanities, and visiting faculty at the Center for Society and Policy at the Indian Institute of Science. He's the founder of, in the poster I had put Professor Sarukkai, he said please remove Professor. I'm no longer, I used to be, but not now. And then the other thing he asked me to remove was I had said, Sundar will talk about what it feels like what belonging means in a place that's changing so rapidly. Sundar will speak about it without taking sides. He said, who said? Please take out that without taking sides. I can't promise that, so I remove that as well. He is the founder of Barefoot Philosophers, an initiative to take philosophy to children and the public. He's the author of the following books: Translating the World, Science and Language, Philosophy of Symmetry, Indian Philosophy and the Philosophy of Science, What is Science, J.R.D. Tata and the Ethics of Philanthropy, and The Social Life of Democracy. Now, he's co-authored, the one I am interested in very much, of course, is Philosophy for Children, which is a lovely book illustrated by my favorite illustrator who's illustrated most of my books, Priya Courier. Which unfortunately we don't have it for sale today, but but if you want to get it, you can contact Funky Rainbow, they'll find it for you and they'll give it. The Funky Rainbow is the bookstore that's selling the books here today. He has co-authored 2 books with Gopal Kulu, The Cracked Mirror, an Indian debate on experience and theory, and Experience, Caste and the Everyday Social. Philosophy for Children has rapidly been widely translated and is in use in schools as well. Then I won't say this because it's in Tamil, so what is it? Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's in Tamil, I'll say it wrong, so I won't say it. Yeah. But his last 2 books were critically acclaimed novels, Following the Prayer in 2023 and the new one, which we're discussing today, Water Days. His forthcoming book is already in work, and the next book is an introduction to philosophical thinking titled The Philosophical Imagination. So, welcome Sundar. So honored to have you here and so pleased that you're here. First of all, I finished reading this book. I started reading it, I loved it, then I gave, because I had so many other things to do, I was traveling, it fell off the map. And I finished it only this morning. And it made me laugh uproariously. So it's a wonderful book, I have to say. I rarely give such, I'm not fulsome in my praise usually about things, but I enjoyed it so much because it's just got that right balance of dry humor, that very even register, no judgments, just saying things, this is how it happened, these are the, but also deeply insightful, especially about women's thoughts and emotions. I thought that was brilliant, that's very, very nicely done. But, inserting in between these little lines and little jokes, some deep philosophical insights that you have to read it and then what did he just say? And you go back to it. And so now what I'm waiting to do is finish this conversation, go back and start reading it again from the beginning, now that I know how it ends and everything. So tell us about, the premise is that it is set in Mathikere. That itself, first of all, you said Mathikere 90s, then I want to buy that book immediately. 90s Bangalore Mathikere, because I went to school in Malleshwaram and a lot of my classmates were from Mathikere. Their dads were scientists, or moms were scientists, they lived in that area and they used to come. Of course, 90s also, and that's when the change really began. On the heels of liberalization, the fabric of the city began to change, and what Sundar has done is he's taken the lens to one small middle class or lower middle class part of the city and shown us, we are all, we live in our elite bubble mostly and we know how the changes have affected us at our level. But through this book, he has shown us that the changes have percolated to every level and the changes are the same. But it's done so gently, without any aggression and with a lot of humor. So how did you come to write this book?
Thank you, Roopa. It's really a honor to be in conversation with you and to come to Bangalore Room. I must confess, I haven't come here before, but I've heard so much about it. I didn't know there's a kind of an oasis of this house in this girl thing. We avoid anywhere from that road to this. The closest I've seen is BIC sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when I came today, I was like, wow, I should walk around before entry. Because I've never seen this place. So, anyway, thank you so much. Thank you all for spending your Sunday evening to be with us. I wish I had more readers like you. And people who actually have to, because the larger question is how do we read a book, right? How do we read a text, how do we respond to it? I was so glad that you began with the fact that you laughed a bit, because definitely that's a very important goal of mine. Writing in general, my philosophy books, people don't laugh like they don't laugh at this, but I think it's very light. So at least my classes, our students always used to laugh, because I think it's through humor that we, through a kind of distancing ourselves from the seriousness of what we do, that we are able to communicate better. So that's a mode which I'm very happy with, and I'm so glad that you picked up on that. So the story started, my earlier novel was actually called Following a Prayer, which is about 3 children, girls. It's a very woman-centric story. And I'm saying this because in some sense it's the larger world I'm writing. And it is about a girl who gets lost in a forest, who gets lost, and people, they don't find her for 3 days, and everybody in the village, it's a certain Malna, our way and so on. And then she doesn't come back, and then they're all worried about it. And 3 days later, she comes back, but she has stopped speaking. She doesn't speak to the whole book, and the whole village. Everybody is trying to figure out why doesn't she speak, and can we make her speak? That is I would say it's a more quote-unquote philosophical. I often hesitate to use the word philosopher in my novels because people immediately think, oh, it's philosophy, I don't want to read it. Yeah. So I keep telling them, this is a detective novel. It's a detective genre. It's meant to be, it is actually a quote-unquote mystery. So was also Following, because we are sustained in the fact that what's going to happen to the girls. Will she speak? Will she speak? Yeah. Here too, whatever the story. Yes. Okay, confess why I wrote this book. I'm very interested in detective genres. I love reading, detective spy novels. I must confess I don't read serious literary novels because I feel like even, in my professional work I am supposed to do philosophy, then why will I also read serious books for entertainment? Right? So, but I enjoy them a lot. In the sense I know that there's some parts of it I enjoy. So when I started, I wanted to write a book which is okay, let me confess to this. I think the point is I had written first a novel much earlier when I was in the 90s, which was I think it was a very serious literary novel. And in 90s, we did not have as many publishers as we have now. It was so difficult to even get anybody to respond to your, you could send whatever, nobody would respond. And then I got so frustrated with it and I said, okay, people want, and this is much before Chetan Bhagat, because now Chetan Bhagat is our model. We want to sell like him, not write like him. That's the aim. But how do you sell like him? So that's the thing I got.
Tragedy of every author, they would love to sell like him. They invite him to all the lit fests because he draws the crowd.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. But then after that, they will insult him on stage. So I'm like, this is not okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why people buy his book, but that's a different story. But the point is that.
Recorded by the way, just say.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Chetan, I don't mean that. In case he's going to see it, I'm sure he's not going to see this. The point was, how do we make people to actually read what we want? So there's one question of why write it down? That's a question I struggle with all the time because I used to have many PhD students and stuff, and there are teachers here, and we know how difficult the question is. When students come to us and say, why should I write? How can I write? Especially PhD thesis is such a big, it's more a kind of hand-holding, right? You have to tell them why. And at one point, after 3-4 years of being in PhD and taking on the fellowship, then they have this crisis. I won't write, I can't write. Why should we write? What is the point in writing? And so I always used to do these writing workshops for students in academic work too. What does it actually mean to write? So in my case, I wrote this not because I said there's an expression. I wanted to explore something. And I wanted in the detective genre. But more important, I think what I was really concerned with at that time is what does it mean to be an Indian detective. I don't know what that sounds like. What I mean by that is, I was part of larger questions on what does it mean to do Indian science. And I was part of, since a lot of my work was on studying science institutes, it's largely philosophy of science. I was looking at various institutional things, and the question always was, why do we not produce very original work? And my interest wasn't this question of originality. In art, in science, we have some fantastic scientists in Bangalore and elsewhere. Why is it that we do not produce the kind of work that the rest of the world follows? Why is it? I think that's true in art. I have very good, wonderful artist friends, but still, there's a question which doesn't. They also agree largely at some level, and these are a large number of sociological reasons. But there is also a cultural reason of how we do science, how we do literature, how we do history. All of these are something about the way our life is structured. So the question was, what is it to be a detective? I love reading Hercule Poirot, but Hercule Poirot is not possible in Mathikere. He's not possible in Bangalore or anywhere in India, but definitely not in Mathikere. You can't have Agatha Christie reproduced. You can't have, the other, an author whom I really like, Jean Le Carre, who has a spy novelist. Smiley, Smiley is a very good character, but you still need Berlin for that.
Yeah.
You need that kind of, but in India, you need that kind of spookiness of the midnight. When you come near the Charlie point, you don't know who the spy is, who's going to grab you. You go to Mathikere, there are dogs and cats and people here at 12 o'clock there. Yeah. And you are never free of anybody's sight.
Yes.
And my point was larger question of the gaze of the family. The family, which is always revolves around idea of what is it to be in India. And this is the largest sociological question. This is part of one of my books with Gopal on that, on the everyday social. So that question is there. So here is this very, I don't know, everybody calls Raghavendra a very weak character.
No,
I like him.
I love him to bits.
Yeah.
Very, very nicely.
Yeah.
Of course, Purnima is my favorite,
Yeah,
but Raghavendra is not bad.
So the point is, here is this guy. Actually,
Yeah, please.
Okay, about this story.
Yeah, just you only speak. I love hearing.
No, I don't want to say what you have to say.
Yeah.
You have to stop me.
Yeah.
No, I just think, it's this guy who was a security man. He's an ordinary job. And for some reason, he gets caught up in this, this dream of having a detective, whatever nature said. And it's a lot of reasons for it, etc. And the point is, his desire is to own a grocery shop. That's his dream. In a sense, it was also my dream. Really, that's my dream. It's got a great fascination to just sit in a grocery shop, surrounded by all these beautiful smelling things. And then various people come, talk to you, give something, transact, you engage with people, you are in the midst of that which sustains us, all that food. And it's such a, at least a very idealistic dream. And here, that's what this guy wants to do. But I don't know, he's doing it not because of all this love, because he thinks it's a nice life.
He just wants to chill.
He just wants to chill.
And he wants to be surrounded by gunny sack smell, which I totally understand. Yeah, like just that lovely smell of gunny sacks. And he says he says his wife has the house as her kingdom, he wants the shop. Yeah. He just wants to sit there and just chat, shoot the breeze with whoever comes. Yeah.
And so does his wife. His wife doesn't want him at this house. She's also very happy having her space and says, you go sit there and listen to me. But the problem is, he gets into this situation, he thinks he's going to do this security thing. But then, he's married and he's got 2 young girls. Now, how are you Hercule Poirot when you have a very ambitious wife and 2 young children? That's the question. How do you write a story of that? That's really
I think you've achieved it brilliantly. An Indian detective who is not even a detective.
He's not a detective
at all. Like what was that Nasikdin show, that Perfect Murder? Remember there was one book called The Perfect Murder? There was a Mr. Perfect movie also. Yeah. So that was supposed to be an Indian detective story, but it was written by a British guy.
Oh.
Godbody. No, something.
Inspector.
Something. Yeah. So there have been attempts, but they've gone more into the police procedurals. Like how does Indian police function? There's that. But this is just an ordinary man who's just decided he has become a detective. But that was incited by somebody else.
Yeah.
That is Nagaraj, not his own.
Yes. He's
Yeah.
he's not a very ambitious man in that sense,
Yeah.
But the point is, now that you mentioned the police, I was just thinking, because I've engaged with a lot of police all over a long time, I don't see any police with Sherlock Holmes not Sherlock Holmes, what do you call Scotland Yard? It's only there in Tamil films. I can't imagine Scotland Yard functioning in the way we read about it.
Yeah.
Because there is a whole sequence of engagement with the cops, and cops are not there to solve mysteries, crack detective stories, and so on. It's actually, there's a larger social question which interests me a lot in the Indian context. That the fact that given the way in which our society is so stratified, there's so much of kinds of very inhuman acts within social practices, violence is very less. We don't have very deeply, the psychological killers, which we read American fiction. My God, they are scary.
Yeah.
And it's a problem for me because I stopped reading the psychology. I used to read them, and then when I travel, I'm so scared. I don't know where is the serial killer and who is the serial killer, who is going to shoot you.
Yeah.
Really, I'm saying it builds a story there. Why is it that in India, with all these kinds of things, why is it that the nature of violence is also very different?
Very different.
I'm not saying it's good, bad, there's something very special about it. I'm just saying the nature of violence, just like the nature of friendship, nature of family, really influences what a story can be in India.
Yeah. And like you said, the family also. That relationship between Purnima and Raghavendra, this is the sort of central protagonist of the story, the family at the center. So the husband and wife, Purnima and Raghavendra, and they are a Kannadiga family. So this novel, I should say, also explores the coming of so many outsiders into Bangalore. It's not a new thing. People have always come in from outside, even from time immemorial, like people, since Kempegowda's time, people have come in from everywhere. But that kind of escalation which happened post 1995 or what, that sort of began to change the fabric of Bangalore itself. And Sundar explores that very beautifully and again, without judgment. That's why I put that without taking sides, because I thought philosophically you will explain everything. But it is, but even if you said you didn't want, it is a very philosophical look. And that change is something that will come. We can't, our circumstances, the changes around us, the choices we make, they're all so entangled. And we make the choices we make with the best intentions, but then because there are so many other players and variables, it becomes something else entirely. I think the book does it really well, but what I loved the best was the relationship between Purnima and Raghavendra and the kind of conversation that happens. So there is an underlying affection, but there's also underlying, like, who's this man? Like, why is he like this? Why? And like the best, one of the sweetest lines I thought was, she's just frustrated about many things. She's frustrated that he doesn't have a job, that he wants to start a detective agency, that the person that he has tied up with for this detective agency is not somebody that she likes. He seems like a little slimy creature. She doesn't want to have her husband have anything to do with him. And mainly, the name of the detective agency is called Raghu's Detective Agency. I was like, what is Raghu? Raghavendra should be Raghu. What is Raghu? Who is this man? So that was one irritation. And so then anything that husband does is annoying her. Okay, and stuff that he does for no fault. So once she gets really upset, how can he was sweating? How can anybody sweat in Bangalore? And that was such a beautiful line because I have felt it so many times. Like, it's a betrayal of Bangalore itself. How dare you sweat in Bangalore?
As the 90s, Bangalore was not like
today. Actually, today was such a beautiful day outside. So it's still lovely. This season has been lovely, So that kind of thing. But that's why I was like, how do you get into people's heads like that?
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting question because I said why I started the following a prayer is that was I remember the first book release we had. Somebody called and said, what is it that how is it that you inhabit that girls? Because a 12-year-old child, and these are 3 children, 12 and 10. And so that time I said this and I still maintain it. When I wrote that book, at least I felt I was part of those 3 years. In the sense, my intellectual capacity is only theirs. maybe that's something I learned in my philosophy with children. I work a lot with children, these philosophy camps. And again, whenever we say philosophy, that's why I qualified it. But my approach to philosophy is it is light and it is illuminating. It is not something that's going to drag you down and make you think of what you don't understand. But it's actually the attempt is to make us understand. So I don't mind if you say in that sense it's philosophy. But so when I do it with these children, one of the most simple lessons I begin with is to say, no, I don't want to come and teach you. Because I already have all these opinions and from I've read something, etc. So there's no point when I talk to them about language, for example. What is a word? If I start with theories of language, this is what it is, then you lose them in 2 seconds. And it's not interesting enough for me to, and they are also not interested. Which means I have to be exactly at their understanding of what language is, what word is. Rather than try and correct them and say, no, that's not the meaning, I'll tell you what it is. Which means it's a long process. When I first started doing philosophy with children, people said, how can you keep children and which I didn't even think of. And I announced a 3-day workshop when I was at NIAS. And 3-day workshop with philosophy from morning 9:30 to 4 o'clock. And I used to do this for adults, a lot of adult students. So I just presumed that's what I wanted to do. So that's why I did it. Then immediately one of my colleagues who works on education came and said, it does be really idiotic. Because children sit for 40, even their classes are 40 minutes in a subject.
Yeah.
And here you are saying you want to teach philosophy for 3 days, from 9:30. So I thought about it because I worked with children. Then I really, it was, then I had to think how I was going to do it. But every time, and this is not about my teaching, it's about the nature of philosophy. In every workshop we do, we never finish what we set out to do. There are workshops we've done for 4 and 5 days, and we've had parents. I never let parents into the.
Yes, very wise.
Yeah, because it gets to. And every time these parents are like, what are they doing? Why are they all sitting there and they're coming out, playing, running, laughing? So I think it is that ability, not ability, it is just losing my sense of self.
Yeah.
And I am Raghavendra, I am.
Yeah.
No, that's sense. So and a lot of it is about, for me, that's about the nature of writing. And sometimes people say, why? I think some of my academic colleagues will feel a bit betrayed that I've been doing novels. But the point is, I'm
having such fun novels.
Oh, that they really feel bad. Philosophy people feel really betrayed massively. But the point is, I've written so many philosophy books before this, right? This is the first, I've never had a session like this where people actually call people to talk about their books.
Really?
Yeah. This is the first time I'm actually coming, not to just Bangalore Room. I was just looking at it from the outside and saying, look, all these people are writing some stories, are actually going around to Litfest and they're having a lot of fun talking about books, everybody's coming, and I'm writing all these books and nobody's calling, even the publishers don't get in touch with me, they don't come and send books like this and all that. So I said, well, if I can write those books, why don't I write these books?
Yeah, thank God.
But the point is, no, but the point is, writing this is a form of expression, the same way I feel like writing those books. And of course, we have now built an ecosystem where literature has become very big, I guess, in India.
Has it?
I don't know. As I said, Litfest, I often wonder, why don't they call any of us who keep writing all these books, even for popular books?
Yeah.
Like I've done one, democracy, science, and so on. But I'm
you
sure
should be on Instagram, Sundar.
I know. So
Yeah.
that was my
They call you.
So what I'm saying, it's not easier to do this writing fiction. But more than that, I think for me, fiction is. So why I began with this is, for me, I say this, and it's not very pretentious, but I'm trying not to, which is that it is language which writes for me. So when I say I inhabit those words of these people, part of the point is to say I remove my sense of self, that is me, it is Sundar Sarukkai who's writing. That position of reaching where I am not writing, but I am just letting language write through me, so I don't think writing this book is any different from my writing my philosophy books.
That's wonderful.
Because it is just what I allow that language. Just some story I want to say and it flows through.
Oh.
So that notion of inhabitation is what I'm saying.